Hello and welcome to Marxisms. Good morning. And it is morning. It is 5:05 where I'm at. Um, some good news this morning. No, there's not. I mean, there probably is somewhere. I'm sure there is. But that'd be boring, wouldn't it? Yeah, no, I'd rather focus on good news if we had some. Unfortunately, there's more bad news. And this has apparently gone largely unreported by the media once again. The Treasury has declared that the U.S. is insolvent, and the media missed it. So this is from Fortune magazine. Um, the U.S. government is insolvent, and they're saying it's not hyperbole or hyperbole or however you like to pronounce that. I prefer hyperbole. I think it's actually acceptable both ways. I don't know. Yeah, it's our debt is just ridiculous. We have 6.06 trillion in total assets, okay? And we have 47.78 trillion in total liabilities, and that is not including Medicare and Social Security. Um yeah, they are disclosed separately, and that's another um entirely different issue. Um so let's see. Oh God. So anyway, this is and you can't blame the dumb shit in office for this. You can blame him for continuing it because he's spending massive amounts of money, and exactly what's going on there is what the problem is. And um, this is ridiculous. This is scary, actually. And here we have some of the richest people in the world just making billions and billions of dollars. Could they pay this debt off? No, because this has gone on since the '80s. So even if I mean, we'd have to start taxing them, and we'd just have to start paying it down, and we'd have to start um, tightening our belts to do this, but we're not doing that. And we never do. The Republicans run on this issue. Bajan and I talked about this yesterday. Bajan was just talking about how he's a fiscal conservative, and like Republicans used to be or always claimed to be. And I'm laughing as soon as he said that. I'm like, yeah, okay, exactly, because Republicans have always, we got to balance the budget. Only one that's ever done it's a Democrat. He did have members of Congress who were Republicans who were involved in that, of course. So he doesn't get, everybody always likes to give the credit to the president when it's not necessarily the case. The president is only half the deal there. Um, so anyway, where did this debt come from? I mean, well, it started in the '80s. Ronald Reagan. Yeah, Ronald Reagan talked about balancing the budget. He talked about stacking bills on top of each other to reach the moon, and that's how much our debt was, and we needed to do something about it. And then he proceeded to spend like a drunken sailor on what? Drunken sailors and drunken soldiers and whatever. He started building up the military to bury the Soviet Union, which was I think it was kind of unnecessary in retrospect because I think it would have happened anyway because people just I mean they didn't have a system that was working, and we should have stopped worrying about it. We worried too much about communism. Oh, the evil communism. I mean they it was almost 1984 ish how they created this whole the Cold War was that's exactly what the Cold War was. It was two mutual enemies fighting proxy wars um, you know, to keep their people together and whatever, probably profit, at the top, not the bottom. So anyway, in the early '80s, the Ronald Reagan era, debt began growing at a faster rate due to the combination of large tax cuts, which he did. He also, I was going to say that too. He gave tax cuts to the rich. Our tax base now is way different than it was before Ronald Reagan. We would not have the debt that we have today. There's a few things that have happened along the lines, but we should not um, we would not have the debt we had today if he hadn't massively cut uh, taxes on the wealthy with their trickle down economics hoax, because it is a hoax. As we see today, the results of trickle down economics, these are the results today of Ronald Reagan era trickle down economics. George H.W. Bush, they all touted that. What has it done? It's created a 1% that has the majority of the money, and then it has a bunch of poor people, pretty much. Working poor, people on welfare who are on are working. People who are working are on welfare. The companies that they work for are making massive amounts of profits and have been making massive amounts of profits every quarter for a very long time. And that all started with Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan also took the Social Security out of the lockbox, so to speak. The Al Gore terminology. I don't know if it preceded him or not, but he always talked about the lockbox. Yeah, it needed to be in a lockbox. It needed to be, handled in a fiscally responsible manner, year to year. And it wasn't. It should have been, there should have been investment and whatnot, but instead they threw it into the general Treasury fund, the general fund or whatever the hell it is, and um, just destroyed the whole system. So, and then with the increased military spending, we're trying to bury the Soviet Union, and we spent just massive amounts of money on, and we have a high tech military today, but we don't really need it. We use this high tech military to project power. We don't need it to protect the homeland, which is what we should be worried about. And I love, that we have aircraft carriers and we can go anywhere in the world and do whatever the hell we want. But it's also a dangerous thing. I mean, we shouldn't do that, first of all. I mean, it used to be supposedly about protecting people. That's really never what it was about. It was about protecting interests. It was about protecting resources and stealing them. And now we're doing it again. But anyway, so then in the 2000s, so that wasn't, that was bad. I don't know. Maybe he figured, oh, nothing bad's going to happen, so we can just not worry about it, and it'll correct itself somehow because of trickle down economics. Everybody's going to be wealthier. Everybody's going to be paying more taxes. Yeah, it didn't work out that way because the people that should be paying the taxes are not paying the taxes now. Mm. Then we had 9/11. The Iraq and Afghanistan wars, of course, combined with the 2008 financial crisis. Um, that's another thing. We had a couple of these, like housing crises and stuff like that. And I remember, in fact, Bajan and I, who I interviewed yesterday, we talked about that back in the day, like the housing crisis and how it was blamed on Bush when it actually, all the mechanisms that took place before that took place under the Clinton administration, and it was Republicans and Democrats because the Republicans held the Congress, as we know, back then, and they pushed it too. In fact, Reich pushed it as well. But and what it was the the AMA, I think, the American something Act, where they allowed um, people that didn't quite have the income to get a few. They mandated that the banks did a few mortgages, or that the mortgage companies did a few mortgages that were to people that were, that didn't quite have the money, the subprime deal there. And then another thing happened was that they repealed Glass-Steagall, which allowed the banks to get involved in all that. And it ended up being a recipe for disaster because when Washington Mutual changed hands, the new ownership saw that all the money that was being made out of this one little thing where you're mandated to do a certain amount. They said, "Well, God, this is making a lot of money," so they just did a bunch of them, which wasn't sustainable because these people were eventually not going to pay their loans when the economy went bad, which it did, and and then they weren't able to sell their houses, and everybody, it hurt everybody, and it was the bank's greed that did it. I kind of got caught up in that myself, but I was making enough money that I knew that we had one of those subprime mortgages, and but I was paying a lot extra every month on my mortgage, but then it tanked the economy, and then I wasn't working for a while, so then it was not that was not sustainable for us. Um, but so yeah, I heard a lot of people that shouldn't have been. I mean, I everything was fine. I was managing, and then all of a sudden I wasn't able to manage it because the whole system broke. And then what did we do? We um we bailed them out. We bailed out the banks. We bailed out the rich people. We gave them socialist a socialist bailout after we already give them subsidies and all kinds of stuff anyway, and tax breaks and whatnot. Um, so we give them money to bail them out for the problem they caused. Did we bail out the people? No, no, I didn't. Nobody gave me any money. Nobody bailed me out. Nobody bailed anybody else out. I didn't cause the problem. You know, but we all paid for it. We didn't cause it, but we paid for it. And then but God Almighty, if we want an 8-hour workday or more money, you're a communist. These guys are getting the socialism, and they're calling you a communist. It's pretty funny. Um, so the 2020s, then we had the um, oh yeah, we got the stimulus, the 2000s. We got the stimulus. They had to pass out that stimulus, which didn't. It was like what, couple $1,000s, depending on what your status was at the time, and as far as having kids and married and all that stuff. And yeah, it didn't do a lot. And then you had the 2020s COVID pandemic, uh, and all the trillions in emergency spending and relief there. Um, and there was actually a huge jump between 2024 and 25. Biden was doing a pretty good job of keeping spending relatively down until that Infrastructure Act. But again, we needed to do an Infrastructure Act. Was there stuff in there that shouldn't have been? That's the problem with omnibus bills. We should vote on things one at a time. Congress should actually do their job instead of, their 3 martini lunches and whatnot at their fancy schmancy restaurants. Anyway, yeah, so they've gotten us in trouble, Republicans and Democrats alike, and Trump is spending just enormous amounts of money. He's rebuilding our military, even higher tech now. We're not going to be able to afford to do this. What happens when I don't know. What happens when someone tries to cash in that debt? Um, I'm not sure if it's in their interest to do that. Yeah, I don't know how this is sustainable, honestly. I've been saying this for literally years, though, for literally 20, maybe even 30 years. Well, probably 30 years. Yeah. Okay. I'm not that young. Yeah, it's been 30 years. Now, I've been saying this for 30 years. So, well, I've been saying it since the 80s, actually. With the debt, I didn't really understand all the what was causing it and everything else. And I did not like the spending of the Reagan era, but I was actually kind of a Reagan fan back in the day. And I'm ashamed to say, because he did do a lot of damage in retrospect. So that's what history is about. It's about learning about it. And I was a young man when Reagan was in office. In fact, first time I ever voted was in 1984 or 83. Yeah, 84 for the 84 election. I guess it was in 83 though. Huh? Yeah, so that was the first time I ever voted for in a presidential election. So. And I was a very proud Republican back then. Not anymore. All right, so yeah, they got us in big trouble, and they're not reporting it, but apparently the The Treasury is insolvent, according to the Treasury. Peace.